guys, good to be with you again for another episode of The Wrap. It actually feels...
Episode 12.
Yeah, 12.
Nice even dozen.
Oh, we are at a dozen. Next time it'll be the baker's dozen. I don't know if it feels like this to you, but to me, it feels like it's been ages since we recorded.
Yes.
Like we were on a bit of just a behind-the-scenes tour here a little bit. We were on a bit of a, was it last week? No, it was the week before, wasn't it? Or
week before last.
Week before last. We were all kinds of crazy on our recording schedule. We didn't know which way was up. We ended up that week recording 2 sermons and two wrap episodes.
Yeah.
So we had 4
just to
recordings.
keep you all on schedule.
Yeah, just to keep everything on schedule because I was on vacation that week. You were on vacation last week, and we did everything at the beginning of the week, but there was only one of each, one sermon, one wrap episode. But it just, for some reason, feels like it's been
really offset
forever. Yeah, because usually we record on Thursdays, and last week we recorded on Monday, so that's probably why it feels like it's been ages. But suffice it to say, we are back.
Not that you ever missed us because we were here.
Yeah, not that you maybe really ever missed us, but we
are back.
We missed doing this, and we are back.
That's
right. So we're really glad today. Well, sorry about that if that was a loud noise there. Back to talk about the Sermon on the Mount, and specifically, this week we get to talk about the Beatitudes, but let's not get ahead of ourselves because we're only going to talk about
half the Beatitudes.
Just half.
Cut it right in half. Can't do the whole thing yet.
And we found out why, didn't we?
Yes, because it takes a long time.
It takes a long time to preach through the Beatitudes. I just did half of them. So again, depending on how you count, people there is a list of 8 Beatitudes, or 8 what I call, they're really attitudes. They're really kingdom characteristics of a person who has a kingdom mindset and is living for the kingdom of God. So there really are 8 of them. Some people.
So if you're in the kingdom, that be your attitude.
I think that's why they call it that. If you be in the kingdom, that'd be your attitude. Be your attitude. I like it. So, like I said, some people will count it and say that there are 9 because at the very end we'll talk about next week. The last beatitude is all about being persecuted, and then Jesus seems to tack on and emphasize that beatitude and talks a little bit more about that idea of persecution. Some people separate that out and make it its own own beatitude. It really doesn't matter. There are some characteristics here, some traits.
Doesn't change the message.
Doesn't change the message at all of what he's going for here. There are 8 of these. A lot of people will say this is like Jesus. If Jesus was to give a manifesto, this is his manifesto.
That's the word of the week right there.
Yes, that's the word of the week. It's not a really big one, not a huge one this week, but it's a good, solid word. Yeah. But this would be his manifesto, the things that he... And again, I'm going to be very clear from the get-go. These are not things that you walk away from and be like, well, I need to do that. I need to do that. I need to do that. What Jesus is really saying here with these Beatitudes is... if you already have this heart attitude, right?
This is how you're going to act.
Yeah, this is how you're going to act.
These are really, we can kind of look at these as the fruit of.
Now, don't get too far ahead.
Okay. I don't want to.
In this week's sermon, we get to talk about somebody has coined the phrases and the terms, in a very preachery way. The fruit. The root, the shoot, and the fruit.
I love the alliteration.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yes.
It's awesome. Really, the first about 3 or 4 are the roots. You need to establish yourself in that. I think what they were saying was the first 3 are the roots. The 4th beatitude is the shoot, what comes out of it, and then the fruits of it are all those last 4 beatitudes.
I like that.
So it's a very interesting way to think, and again, another good. Illustration point or explanation point, I guess you would say, is that really if you begin to look at these Beatitudes, I would encourage you, to, as we're talking about this, not only today, but next week, pull out your Bible. Matthew chapter 5 is where we're at with those Beatitudes. You'll see that verses 3 through 12, roughly, if you want to count all that bonus information at the end there. Very important stuff. That each beatitude flows out of the one. It almost seems, anyways, that each beatitude flows out of the one before it. Yeah. And again, today we're talking about
Can't have one without the other.
Can't have one without the other. And again, one thing I said is if you don't get the very first one, blessed are you who are poor in spirit. You won't understand the 3 Beatitudes that come after it, and you really won't understand any of the other Beatitudes. You have to understand that. And for those of you who watch the wrap, you get a little bit of a sneak peek for next week. What's really neat, if you look at the verse 4 Beatitudes, they are all about weakness. The last 4 Beatitudes are all about strength. But you can only ever get to strength. You can only ever have God's strength if you recognize your weakness.
That's good. You got to start weak.
You do. You have to recognize your weakness. And again, that's the very first Beatitude. And being poor in spirit, that's what it means. There's this I can't do it on my own. I can't do it in my resources, in my own wisdom. I am dependent on God for everything.
Well, and I think that ties into what Jesus said of coming to him like a little child. You know, like a little child is going to come knowing they're full well they're pretty much going to be dependent on you, you know, like as an adult.
Yeah, a child can do really very little on its own.
Yeah. And expects to do little, like a baby doesn't expect to have to do all that stuff on its own.
A baby has no expectations
and
of
has
of
no
independence.
problem in asking you to help.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It has no expectations of independence, especially a baby or a toddler. I mean, like I've got a 3-year-old, a little Brylan, and everything is, I can't do that. Help me. So I'm just like, and as frustrating as that gets as a parent, like, oh my land, please stop. You can do this. Yeah. It's a great illustration of what God really wants out of us, his spiritual children, as he wants us to come to him and say, I can't, and it's not that we just be like, well, God, do everything for me. Like, no, God's like, no, there's a part to play here. Right. But I need you to understand at the base of everything, at the core of everything, you're helpless. Right. You are needy, and I am the person to fill that need. So, a lot of good setup right there for the Beatitudes as a whole. And these first 4, now let's begin. Let's just kind of name these first. Look, here, this is like pop quiz time, all right? I'll put you on the spot, but
I'm bad at these.
I start you off. The first one is, blessed are you who are poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is yours. And then he goes on. Do you remember what number 2 was?
I never remember these in the right order. Those who mourn.
Blessed are you who mourn, for they will be...
How bad is this that he's having to give them?
Like, we're doing like charades now. Sounds like... Wait, one word. Mourn, for they will be comforted. Third one, Jesus says, blessed are they who are, different translations say either humble or meek, for they will inherit the earth. Yeah. And the last one is, remember, those who...
hunger and thirst for righteousness.
Yes. It says that...
for they will be filled to the brim.
Yes. That's not actually what he says
in
the translation.
What it says.
I honestly, at this moment, putting myself on the spot, I can't remember what the actual blessing is in that. But we'll look that up later or come across that later. But which one of those 4, poor in spirit, mourning, meekness, humility, hungering and thirsting for righteousness, which of those really stands out to you? And why does it stand out to you?
I think the meekness kind of stands out to me. Because, especially as men, right? We're not taught to be meek. Like, you don't do that. Yeah. You don't show
and not even really just men, but just our entire culture. Well, every person is expected to be strong, to get on with it. Right. To, pick yourself up pull yourself up by your bootstraps, get going. Yeah. Yeah. But what else, So
I think that stands out to me because that one's kind of antithetical to what we usually... It's a big paradigm shift for a lot of us. And that kind of goes along, I think, with that, those who mourn. Because we don't want to touch that, We
don't mourn. We don't grieve. Yeah. We're stoic. We're stone cold. We're stone faced. Yeah. Nothing bothers us. Nothing will get to us. We're invincible. Absolutely. And really, like you said too, what a great insight there that every one of these Beatitudes is antithetical to the spirit of our...
And I liked how you put it last week, how it really is, it's not a turning of the thing upside down, but it's a writing of the ways that God intended. Yeah. But we've messed it up. Yeah, we've flipped it over.
Jesus comes.
He's just flipping it back over.
Absolutely. Jesus comes and announces, this is the way that God made it originally. Right. My Father made it originally. I'm just resetting that and putting things back in order. So maybe a better way to to think about it, because our little subtitle for our sermon series, Sermon on the Mount, and or Kingdom Upside Down, it really should probably be a kingdom inside out. Because it's almost like rather than turning things upside down, Jesus is turning things inside out, you know?
Right.
And because that's really the big part of the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there's this huge, not just in the Sermon on the Mount, but there's this huge focus in all of the Gospel of Matthew on internal versus external. So maybe a better subtitle for the sermon series would have been A Kingdom Inside Out, you know, because that's such a focus of the sermon of Matthew, is we are to be called to internal righteousness, a heart. And again, we'll get to that next week when we talk about one of the Beatitudes being that we are called to be pure in heart. There's a reason we are called to do that, because it all starts in here, at the core of who we are. And again, not our physical hearts, because that was something interesting. I don't know. I think I remember in week 1 where you talked about this concept and the Jewish idea of the heart and what Jesus is really talking about there. You know, I think we read that so often in Scripture. We're like the heart, and we think of like our physical heart, like that's kind of weird. Like,
you're right.
I mean,
like I went to read, I got my heart scanned, I'm good, right?
Yeah, but really the heart
I
is
think
so
that's
much.
what Jesus talking about.
Heart is so much bigger than that. It is a sum total of all
It is
that
you to the core.
You to the core, the sum total of who you are, and making sure that that is right and well and good with God is of utmost importance. So I think, to me, certainly meekness is a big one, is an important one. It's probably one that's very hard for us to apply, to be humble, to lay down ourselves and our rights and our lives, or as I've heard it say, to take second place and to give everybody else first place. I've also heard it said before, too, that humility and meekness is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. But for some reason, I am just really drawn to this first one, this poor in spirit. And again, so opposite of how our culture operates. We don't want to be poor in spirit.
Right. Right.
You're like, we want to be filled up to the brim, with all the good things. We talked about that a little bit too, didn't we? Right, this whole concept of the word blessed alone. Yeah. Like, we overuse the word blessed in our society, but we misunderstand the word blessed.
We don't even know what that means.
We don't even understand blessed. This is the origin and the defining point for what blessed is the Beatitudes. And like, when you really grasp what Jesus is saying, you are blessed. And again, we have to be very careful here too. You are not blessed because of these things that happen to you. Right. You're blessed because of the reward that you ultimately get in displaying the attitude in that moment. Right. So our idea of blessedness in America is, God gives me all kinds of good things. Gives me good circumstances. He gives me good. It just fills me up with it. And the moment that good is taken away,
we all of a sudden think, well, we're not blessed anymore.
We're not blessed. God doesn't love me. I've done something wrong. I've got to figure out what that wrong thing is to do. And then we begin to engage in a life of rule keeping. Well, evidently I came up short on that rule.
Well, that's what happened to Job. Yeah. And he's experiencing all these testings and these things that God allowed to happen in his life. And his friends were like, Job, surely think back. You've done something wrong, right? Like,
because it's very much the way the world works, right?
Right.
This black and white. You've done something wrong, so something wrong will happen to you. You do good things happen to you.
It's not an exchange.
Yeah, but it's important too in that story of Job. Job understands, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He says, "What?" Again, I'm kind of loosely translating here. He said, "But why in the world should we take all of the good things and run away from all of the bad things?" God is both a giver of things, either to give us his goodness or to test us in some really tough trials in life. Why should we run away from those? And then that's when he says, pretty famously, naked I came from the womb, naked I'll leave this earth. And I arrived with nothing. We arrive with nothing. Right. Everything that we have. And again, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with this poor in spirit. Everything that we have or will ever have in life is only a direct result of the goodness and the graciousness of God.
Yeah, and that is what it means to be poor in spirit. Realizing that, I've done nothing of my own volition. I've done nothing that could give me what I've gotten. You know?
I just thought about it today. I was like, like this should not be very hard for us to apply, but it is insanely hard to apply in our lives to realize our need for God. I just think about my stages of life that I've been in, and only probably it's come recently that I can truly 100% say there's nothing good in me.
Yeah.
There is only goodness in God, and I realize that I have to depend on God to be able to have even an ounce of His goodness and His qualities and His reflection in me. I think we live so much of life, and especially at younger ages, thinking that we are just hot stuff, and like, well, yeah, why wouldn't God want me on His side, because I'm so great. But I think the older and wiser you become, you just like, oh geez, I really see myself for who I am.
Right. Well, and I think that's exactly why Jesus said, to His disciples, it's hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Because the more you have, the more tempting it is to say, look what I've built, look what I've done. I mean, if you're dirt, like if you don't have two nickels to rub together, you're relying on God quite a bit.
Yep.
Because you have no other choice.
Which is no mistake that even though this idea of poor in spirit doesn't directly deal with physical poverty and physical poor people, it's no mistake that most of Jesus' early followers were what?
They were poor.
Poor people.
Yeah.
People who were outcasts of society, is because I have nothing. Like where else? I am reminded of, and I think the best capturing of this spirit of poverty and need for God is in John chapter 6, I believe it is, and that's a point where a lot of Jesus' disciples desert him and say, dude, you are off the rails, can't do this anymore. Jesus turns to his disciples and he says, are you guys going to leave me too? And John has this statement at the end of John 6, and he says, to who else would we go, Lord?
Where else are we going?
You are the one who have the words for eternal life. But I just love that.
Well, at that point, they had given up just about everything.
They'd walked away from it all.
Yeah, what is there to turn back to?
They both, in a spiritual sense and in a possibly physical sense, were poor. And I just love that line there. He says, to who else would we go? Who else would we go, Lord, but you. You have it all we need you for, everything. I'm just like, that captures it right there.
That's poor in spirit right
That's
there.
poor in spirit to a T. And like I said, just such a hard thing to grasp a hold of. But for any of those who are watching who are on the younger side of the scale, do yourself a favor, and whatever you can do in life, get to that point quick.
Yeah.
And understand your need for God, because it's
makes
going to
things a whole lot easier.
it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say easier on no worries, no, you're still going to have those.
Peaceful would be
peaceful
a good thing for
and and happy, as Jesus would define happy.
Yeah, for sure.
And your life will make much more sense to understand that, like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I can't do this on my own. So it's such a big phrase there to understand that. Anything else that stood out to you? You had mentioned something. One of the lines, it wasn't even one of the Beatitudes, but it was a line when I was preaching, or an idea that I came across, was this concept, and it has to go right along with this. I mean, it really has to go along with all four of these Beatitudes. It's just, you show up to God and you're empty.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have that attitude. And I came across this line that just really crystallized everything for me. It was that God only fills empty hands.
Yeah.
Like, all this stuff that we try to hold onto in life and try to clutch at, the reason I'm convinced that we don't feel like we, use whatever you word to, experience God, or we don't have a very close relationship with God, or we don't feel that close to God, is because He can't fill us with anything, because we have a hold of everything else in life.
We're too full of ourselves.
Too full of ourselves. We're too full of everything else.
People.
And usually it's this, and I said this when I was preaching on Sunday. It's usually because we're trying to find our happiness and our fulfillment and our satisfaction and about 1,000,001 other things in life that are never going to do that for us. Right. We're never going to find it there. So why in the world would we not just let go of all that temporary stuff and hold on to the only thing in life that's going to be eternal and permanent?
Right.
And I just love, we had one of our guys here at the church do that meditation on Sunday, and I keep thinking about this concept of God and Jesus and a relationship with Him as a treasure.
Yeah. We
We have to get to that point, and he brings up that parable of the guy who goes into the field and he finds this great pearl, this great treasure, and he says he sells everything. And that is the picture of letting everything go.
Yeah.
To invest all of myself and all of my resources in this one thing, the greatest treasure that I could ever have. And we understand that to be, either Jesus himself, a relationship with him, or the kingdom as a whole. Pursuing God's kingdom and kingdom agenda. That's our greatest treasure that we have in life.
Seek the kingdom, and all these other things will be added to you.
See, all this stuff starts to make more sense, doesn't it, when you understand the essence of the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount.
That Sermon on the Mount, like you said, is Jesus' key piece of teaching. You don't get this.
You don't get those three chapters. You don't get
it
might make some sense, but it won't make total sense. And so that's what I think. Seek the kingdom above all things.
Yeah.
And everything else will be added to you.
You seek after God, God takes care of everything else.
That's it. That's the hidden secret, not so secret truth in the Sermon on the Mount and in these Beatitudes is, do you want happiness and fulfillment and satisfaction in life? Well, what you really need to do is you need to let go of that myth of happiness as the world defines it, and you need to search after God's kind of happiness. And then when you find that and you experience it, you get that, and you get everything else tossed in on top of it. Like oodles of stuff tossed on you so much that you can't even handle it. That's a great insight there, that everything begins to come together when you understand the essence and basic of Jesus' ministry.
I read this, I was reading this book, and I can't even remember which one it was, but they were talking about, when the world thinks of us saying God is a good God, that immediate idea is and I think they use the word benevolent grandfather in the sky that gives us anything we ask for, anything
the
we
bowl
want.
of ice cream that has way too many gummy bears and chocolate syrup on it.
Exactly.
Grandparents.
And that is not what the Bible depicts as the goodness of God. And so
it's almost like we're trying to force God's hand, isn't it?
Yeah.
And manipulate him.
Yes.
I believe you to be good, and so because I think you're good, you have to be good, and you have to give me good things.
And this is what I define as good. So
which is far different from God's definition of good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Any other thoughts or insights that you have that kind of just stood out, from the sermon or these first 4 Beatitudes? Anything that you would like to just kind of put the bow on everything for today?
Not that I can think of.
I feel like we've talked some pretty good stuff there.
I'm excited about next week.
Man, of course, I've been kind of studying this week and getting prepared for the second part of the Beatitudes, and I'm like, this is going to be just as good as the first. And
and if you haven't watched or listened to the sermon, it is available on the church's Facebook. Actually, as we're recording, it is airing right now on Facebook. Now, as you're listening to this, it's already aired.
No, it's already aired.
Ready to go.
You can find it on the church, on that New Heights Facebook page. You can find it on our YouTube channel, whatever you may. Hey, one thing I want to ask you guys always, as usual, is we like to get interaction. We don't often get it. We keep asking.
When we did, we sent them an autographed
copy of headshots in the studio here. But
we've got those available.
What I want to ask you, in all seriousness, is if you watch this, and I know that there are a handful of you plus who watch this pretty regularly. I would like to just hear from you guys. What is, I guess I wouldn't say your favorite part of the rap, because we know that's probably what these two. Oh gosh, there went porn scare right there, right out the window. No, what to you is the most beneficial thing about the rap? What do you get from the rap? What does it represent to you? What does it give you? Anyway, spin that any way that you want. But we'd love to hear. Whenever if you watch this or watching this rap episode this evening as we're recording on a Thursday, just go ahead and put something in the comments and say this is what we appreciate, what it gives me, on a Thursday in a week. Just to help us to hear what it's accomplishing in your life, or what purpose it's serving in your life. I guess is what I'm
for sure. We'd love to
asking. So we would love for you to be able to do that. And then also, if you have any other comments, any other questions, any other prayer requests, as usual, we would love to be able to speak into that for you. So I think that we've said that this is it for this episode of The Wrap, and so we will sign off for now, and we will see you next time.
See you guys.